Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, November 18th, 2020 meeting of the Lebanon Utility Service Board. Let the record reflect that the meeting was properly notified and that all board members are present tonight. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item tonight is the approval of the minutes from the November 4th, 2020 meeting. Everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
I make a motion we approve the minutes.
Second that motion.
I wasn't here, so I will be abstaining.
Okay. Motion made by Bill, seconded by Jim to approve the minutes, and Dan Lamar will be abstaining. Any discussion or questions about those minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. All right, the next item on the agenda tonight is a spokesperson from Lebanon Utilities commercial customer, Skjodt-Barrett, and they will be joining us via Zoom here and to discuss some information, and we're going to go ahead and chime them in here on video and audio if we're ready for that.
All right, Hey, Tom, are you there? Can you hear us?
I sure can, Ed. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Tom, it's Neil Taylor. Thanks for chiming in tonight to our meeting, and we've got you first here on the agenda, so feel free to start, and we're all here listening.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Neil. I just want to say, good evening to everybody, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Ed, thank you for setting this up. I'm the president here at Skjodt-Barrett. I would love to be with you guys in person, but I'm based out of Canada, and with all the COVID restrictions right now, our travel has been kind of restricted, more so than I think in the U.S., so I apologize for not being there in person. So really, I'm a pretty informal guy, so I would say as we're going through this presentation, I'll stop at the end of each slide or each point, and if you guys got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, or if you need any point of clarification. I really only have 4 slides that I'm going to be presenting, just to give you a quick overview of Skjodt-Barrett. I don't know if you are all familiar, if none of you are familiar with it, so I thought it'd be important to give you an overview. Give you a little bit of a background of the situation for the last 6 months that Ed and I have been working together on in our respective teams. Really, I think the key is really to talk about one unresolved item. We've kind of come to a stalemate, and that's why I'm here today, is to present our side of the story to you guys, and then ultimately end with a couple requests on the Skjodt-Barrett side of things. So if you're not familiar, our biggest part of our business is really processing baby food into flexible spouted pouches. We do have 2 facilities, one in Brampton, Ontario, which is our headquarters, and the other one is Lebanon, Indiana. I've just got a couple of examples here of the pouches that we do. It's baby food and applesauce, and you can see we do it for Gerber and Plum, and just to give you some context of what we actually do, because we're not a brand name out there in the marketplace, but we're actually a pretty big player when it comes to spouted pouches. We do have two facilities in the Lebanon area. When we entered Lebanon in 2011, it's about 350,000 square feet between both locations, located on Independence Drive in the Lebanon Business Park. So we have about 215,000, which is our production facility, and then we have another 100,000+, which is our warehouse. Basically, it's our facility, an empty lot, which the owner of our company owns, and then another facility, which is our warehouse. We've experienced some significant growth over the last 10 years. To give you some context to this, we used to be 50 employees in Canada, and so we got into the spouted pouch market, and now we have over 500 across both facilities. And specific to the Lebanon facility, we have about 250 people that we employ in the Lebanon area. Our facility runs 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. We try not to run weekends to give our employees time off to spend time with their families and recuperate. We also are very active in the community. We have a really strong relationship with the Lebanon Rotary, and we make a lot of donations to local food banks both in Canada and Indiana. To give you some more context, in 2020, with the COVID-19 pandemic and more individuals relying on food banks, back in April, the owner of our company challenged us and our customers to work together and donate 1 million pouches by the end of the calendar year to both areas that we do, or both communities which we do our business in. And I'm happy to say we're on track of doing that. We're probably going to get a little over 1 million pouches, which is a tremendous impact to give it to individuals that are in desperate need of that. But related to our facility in Lebanon specifically, to give you guys some more context, and part of the reason why I'm here with you guys today is we have been challenged in that facility the last 3 years to operate with consistent profit. As I'm sure that you guys are aware, the Lebanon Business Park has exploded with other companies since we've been there. The unemployment rate is less than 1.4%, and our wages are extremely high. Due to that, which is great, obviously, for the individuals that we're providing work to, but it's also put a lot of strain on the profitability of that site. On top of that, it's been exacerbated. Nestle, who's our largest customer, who started this business with us back in 2011, decided to internalize this business. And I believe at the end of September, or I know at the end of September was our last production with them. So at the end of September, we actually had to go through, for the first time in recent years, a labor reduction. About 15% of our hourly employees, and we was done at the end of September. And then at the beginning of November, a couple weeks ago, we actually did a similar type of reduction on the salary side, both in Canada and in Indiana, to help offset losing that largest customer. Any questions related to Skjodt-Barrett and our company?
So far, so good.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure you guys are still there. So to give you a background of the situation and of how we got to where we are today. So in Q1 of 2020, we actually reached out to Lebanon Utilities as our site was experiencing water pressure issues. And the root cause that was identified was that we outgrew our infrastructure. So what this means was, originally when we started in the facility in 2011, we were expected to have X amount of water and wastewater consumption in our facility. And as we've experienced this growth over the last 10 years, we outgrew that water infrastructure. And it wasn't until, we hit this pivotal point in the beginning of the year where Nestle, who I said has left us now, informed us they were leaving about 18 months ago, and we've been trying to backfill that volume with other customers and other business. So in March to, I would say, May of this year was just a very sweet spot of, we still had the Nestle volume, we've onboarded these new customers, COVID came along, and we saw an initial spike due to the COVID-19 pantry loading that you would have seen in other industries. And, we couldn't understand why we couldn't get our water pressure into our facility. And so, that's why we reached out to Lebanon Utilities, and then obviously that created this trickle-down effect, which a lot of us, because we're new to the organization, wasn't aware of some of the history. And so that's really where, back in Q1, that's kind of what kicked all this off. And then as part of that assessment, Lebanon Utilities issued 2 separate letters to Skjodt-Barrett on June 26, 2020. We quickly got together with our team and with Ed and his team on July 2nd to discuss these 2 letters. And the first letter was just around 4 violations that we had. And I would say all 4 of those were resolved within 2 weeks. So, it was relatively straightforward. One of those violations, which is more relevant to this conversation than the others, was we did have a affluent meter in our facility that we installed about 18 months ago for wastewater, but it wasn't fully operational because we had some broken drainage pipe in our facility. So in July, early July, we fixed that, the pipe, and we got the meter recalibrated. So now we could actually not only measure the water coming into our facility, but now we had an accurate reading of the wastewater going out of our facility. And the second one, which is the most relevant to today's conversation, was related to water and wastewater fees. So back in 2011, Skjodt-Barrett originally paid for a certain level of EDUs for water and wastewater. And with our growth, obviously we're consuming more of that. And I think over the last 3 to 4 months, and even our communications going back and forth, we've agreed to the right level of EDUs and how much we owe. But at that time, the letter was a $900,000 bill coming to Skjodt-Barrett. That caught us off guard. That caught me by surprise. So we asked to understand, how these EDUs are calculated and how do we capture and calculate it. And, over the last 3 months, there's been, I would say, at least a half a dozen formal conversations and informal communications going back and forth between Skjodt-Barrett and Lebanon Utilities. And this is from my point of view. I mean, I'm sure Ed's giving you his perspective. But these are the things that I think we've agreed to as of right now, is that, we originally paid for a certain level of EDUs back in 2011. Skjodt-Barrett always reported from day one the water consumption coming into our facility, leveraging an accurate meter that's calibrated, that everybody's aligned with. However, I think the big sticking point is we've leveraged this exact same reading for our wastewater reporting. So, overstating our wastewater consumption. As we consume water within our facilities, we have boilers and chillers, and there's actually water that goes into our finished good for our baby food product. So as we were understanding this, obviously we've installed this new meter back in July, we calibrated it. So we have over 100 data points at that point in time, and now we've got another 30 data points. So we're up to 130 data points that demonstrate that we do consume about 28% of the incoming water is consumed in our facility. And, through our conversations, Lebanon Utilities agreed that this consumption percentage is reasonable for what they've been seeing in the market. So, based on all of this conversation going back and forth, we agreed that we are, our water consumption's increased to 237 EDUs and 276 EDUs for wastewater. We agree to that. We agree to the calculation that generates $720,000 that we do owe Lebanon Utilities. So we're not disputing that. We know we're on the hook for that. But there's a couple of things in play here that we're going to talk about. So of the $720,000, $350,000 Lebanon agreed to defer till December 2nd. This is really to give us some time to evaluate whether or not an internal water recovery capital project would reduce the overall water consumption and wastewater consumption for Skjodt-Barrett and obviously eliminate the need to secure capacity at Lebanon Utilities, and Lebanon Utilities can go and sell that capacity to somebody else. We're planning to meet with Lebanon Utilities in early December to give them this proposal. Obviously, if Lebanon Utilities accept this proposal, we're going to invest that money into infrastructure within Skjodt-Barrett. However, if they deny the proposal, or as Skjodt-Barrett's working through it over the next few weeks, the return on investment is not reasonable, we're completely aligned to start paying back this money, this $350,000 as of January 2nd. And due to the fact that Skjodt-Barrett did over-report its wastewater consumption per the city ordinance, we're entitled to a 12-month retroactive billing adjustment, which equates to $92,000. And I think we've all agreed to that between Lebanon Utilities and ourselves. So that's kind of where I think, I'll pause there. I've said a lot. I do have a good summary on the next page that we can talk about as well that kind of breaks this down a little bit better. But I'm hoping that gives you guys at least some background from the Skjodt-Barrett point of view and kind of where we're at right now.
Any questions so far for anybody?
That's it.
Okay, we're good, thanks.
Okay, because I think the next slide will make it a little bit cleaner, because I know there's a lot of words on the page here. But the one outstanding item that's unresolved is, as we're going through this process, we were seeking legal counsel with our firm in Indiana, and they're confident that we're actually entitled to a retroactive billing credit that goes back 7 years, not just 12 months. And this represents an additional $300,000 billing adjustment for Skjodt-Barrett. From our point of view, this should be netted out against what we're owed to Lebanon Utilities. And just to give you a breakdown of kind of where it is, nice and clean, hopefully this is nice and clean, is, we're agreeing that we owe $366,000 to the 237 EDU level for water. We owe $352,000 related to 276 EDUs on wastewater. So, we completely aligned that we owe $720,000 or so. We've agreed that we're going to defer this $354,000 just until December, until we can do the proposal to Lebanon Utilities. The $92,000 retroactive 12-month credit is $92,000. So right now, without bringing this $300,000 into the equation, we owe $272,000 right now to Lebanon Utilities. However, we believe at this time that we're entitled to going back 7 years, which represents $300,000. So right now, we feel we're in a credit position until we have this December 2nd or early December discussion about the water recovery project. So that's to me the real sticking point right now is this $300,000 because we feel that we're entitled to it based on our legal counsel. I talked about our financial circumstances in our Lebanon facility, and right now, we have to pursue all the options to receive this credit at this stage. Looking at the difference between paying, potentially $630,000 versus, $430,000 is a big number for Skjodt-Barrett, and it may require us to do other things with our Lebanon facility. So that's the summary. I got my ask on the next page. I don't know if you want me to go to that or if you guys want to talk about this for a couple minutes. I'll leave it to you guys.
Anybody have any questions right now from the board or?
No questions.
I think this is a good presentation. It spells out your position really well, and I think what we'd like to do is just kind of digest it, discuss it more with Ed and Jeff and the board, and then if we had any other questions, we'd probably go back through Ed for you and handle it that way, if that makes sense.
No, that works for me, and I assume that's Neil, if that's you're talking. I think that I recognize your voice just based on earlier conversation. So if I could just walk you through the next slide, it's really short. It's just kind of what Skjodt-Barrett's willing to do to help close this item out, and maybe that will help with your guys' decision making. So, our preference, honestly, is we're a food manufacturer. We're not in the business of getting into legal disputes. I don't really want to spend any money with our lawyers, and I'm sure you guys are in a very similar situation, going through evidence discovery and all this kind of stuff. So, on our end, we're willing to concede $100,000 of this retroactive billing credit adjustment in order to settle this matter, as quickly as possible. And in that case, we'd be willing to pay $72,000 to Lebanon Utilities on December 1st, which if I just go back to this slide here, that's basically this 28 credit, taking $100,000 out of that. So, we would owe you guys the $72,000. We'd be willing and able to pay that as quickly as December 1st. And then the other thing is, we do have this proposal that we have coming up. We reviewed it internally last week, and we have another review coming up. This infrastructure looks like it's going to be really expensive, and the return doesn't look like it's going to be there for Skjodt-Barrett. So, for me, I believe we're going to have to pay you guys that $350,000 as well. But, in total, you guys are looking at $426,000 that Skjodt-Barrett's going to be paying you guys. Obviously a big bill for Skjodt-Barrett, but we believe we owe that component. And, my ask on that piece is that's going to be a significant payment for Skjodt-Barrett, and if we can pay that out over 18 months, we'd really appreciate that on our end. So I can share this presentation with Ed so you guys can have it. If you guys want to reference it back, I can send it after this meeting if that's something that you guys would want. My ask would be obviously to keep it pretty confidential between the board and Ed, just because, there's some comments in it here about our Lebanon facility that I wouldn't want to get out to the broader population in the community.
Yeah, I think two things. We definitely would like to have a copy because I think it's a pretty detailed presentation. And secondly, we agree that this would be kept between the board and Lebanon Utilities and you.
Got to realize that what we've just done is being streamed on.
Yeah,
YouTube.
and also as our council just suggested, our meetings are public and broadcast. And these are open meetings, so.
And recorded.
And they're recorded meetings, so that, this is all a public meeting, and the public's always, we're required to have these meetings open to the public, so just so you're aware of that.
Okay. No, I guess I wish I would have known that a little bit in advance, so I would have been a little more careful with some of my words, just as it relates to the financial state of our facility, obviously. I wasn't aware of that. But it is what it is. So yeah, I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you for everybody for your time. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing back from you guys as soon as possible on this.
Hey, thanks for your presentation and taking the time. We appreciate it. Does anybody have anything else before we disconnect?
No, I think it's a good presentation, and we will certainly review it.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, thanks Ed for chiming us in on that. That was an information item, so we will move on to the next item, which is a 2020 policy amendment. And Sandra Morgan will address the board on this amendment.
Good evening. Like you said, I'm here tonight to request a one-time amendment to our vacation policy. And the reason for that is, throughout 2020 and as a result of COVID-19, many of our employees hadn't really had an opportunity to take their annually earned vacation time. A lot of their trips got canceled, or places just shut down, so there was nowhere to go. So while we do encourage staff to take their vacation time and, enjoy that time off, we do recognize that with all the safety concerns, coupled with our staffing resources, it's just hindered their use of this time in 2020. So because of those circumstances, I've talked with both Jeff and Ryan, and we are asking if the board will do a one-time amendment to our vacation policy and allow a one-time vacation payout. And what we've come up with is we would like to allow the employees to cash out up to 80 hours of vacation time, provided that they maintain a balance of 40. We would like the elections to be made by November 30th, and then it would go on our December 6th payroll and paid out on December 11th. So, with that, we have taken a really strong look at the budget through September of 2020. And based on a lot of the savings that we've seen in reductions of staff or not replacing staff, this will not have a negative impact on the budget. So in summary, we are asking if the board will approve a one-time 2020 vacation payout in the amount of 8 hours, provided that 40 hours are maintained. Any questions on that?
So Sandra, really what this does is, given that 2020 has been tricky to say the least, and people have unused days, they would either be paid to take these days, as they normally would, but instead of carrying over an abundance of time that could create schedule issues in 21, this would be a one-time payout, but we're not allowing employees to cash out everything they have because we don't want to create any unnecessary hardships later if they would need time off and not have it.
Correct, and that, you hit it on the head. That's the main issue, is we're a little concerned about staffing issues next year, and we really didn't want to deprive the employees of their vacation, so we have been allowing people to carry that over, but we are concerned with the continued shutdowns, what place that's going to put us in next year. And as was mentioned in the working session, I believe, we're really just trying to keep up with the ball and not get real far behind.
It's an employee option, correct?
It is an employee option. They would let us know by November 30th if they would like to take advantage of this program. They wouldn't have to do the full 80 hours. Somebody could come in and say, hey, I have vacation scheduled in December, but I have 4 weeks, so I still would like to cash some out. It would be up to them, but the maximum would be 80 hours.
And that's paid at their current pay rate, right?
That would be paid at their current 2020 pay rate.
All right, any other questions for Sandra? Sandra, thank you for that explanation. If there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve a one-time 2020 vacation payout in the amount of 80 hours, provided that 40 hours is maintained.
Second?
Motion made by Jim, seconded by Dan to approve the one-time policy amendment here for 2020 vacation payout, not to exceed 80 hours. Any other questions or discussion for Sandra? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, thanks, Sandra.
All right, I do thank you, and I know that the employees will appreciate this.
All right, next item tonight is the Noble Street land exchange with the City of Lebanon. It's an action item. And our legal counsel, Jeff Jacob, will discuss this joint resolution. Hey, Jeff.
Good evening, thank you. As the board is aware, and I'm sure Ryan would be happy to answer any questions, but the legal process for the city and the utility, or two governmental entities to swap real or personal property, is through a resolution that you have before you. As you're aware, the Water Department is desirous to locate a water holding tank on property owned by the city and controlled by the Parks Department, and the city and Parks Department is desirous to control a piece of property that was acquired through the 69 kV project on East Noble Street. So I have, if the board doesn't have any questions, I have a resolution that has been your practice that would be read before consideration. This is a joint resolution exchanging property between the City of Lebanon and the Lebanon Utility Service Board. Whereas this joint resolution is intended to exchange two parcels of real estate between the City of Lebanon and the Lebanon Utility Service Board, in exchange for the mutual consideration set out below, is entered into pursuant to Indiana Code 36-111-8. Whereas the Common Council for the City of Lebanon and Lebanon Utilities bind through its service board or governmental entities for the purposes of Indiana Code 36-111-8. Whereas the city, through its Parks Board, is the owner of certain parcel of real estate generally located on the northeast corner of what is commonly known as Abner Longley Park in Lebanon, Indiana, comprised of, in part, approximately 2.0 acres, along with a to-be-defined access easement, and is generally depicted in Exhibit A. Whereas the utility, through its utility service board, is the owner of a certain parcel of real estate, which is commonly known as 501 East Noble Street, Lebanon, Indiana, comprised of .96 acres, and is further depicted in Exhibit B and described in Exhibit C. Whereas the city desires to obtain the utility parcel for the purposes of expanding the public access point to the Abner Longley Park, and has therefore agreed to transfer ownership of the city parcel to the utility. Whereas the utility desires to acquire a future site for water system improvements and has therefore agreed to transfer ownership of the utility parcel to the city. Whereas Indiana Code 36-111-8 permits governmental entities to exchange property for terms they determine to be in their best interest, provided that each passes substantially similar resolutions. Now therefore be it resolved that utility agrees to transfer its ownership interest in the utility parcel as generally depicted in Exhibit B and C to the city, contingent upon the city's transfer of its ownership interest in the city parcel as detailed in Exhibit A to the utility. And be it further resolved that the utility directs general manager to execute any and all necessary documents to effectuate this resolution. And this foregoing resolution was passed by the Lebanon Utility Service Board this 18th day of November 2020. Be happy to answer any questions along with, I'm sure, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff or Ryan on this exchange with the city? If there's no other question or discussion, I would entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Dan, to approve the land exchange with the City of Lebanon as read by Jeff Jacob, the 2020 joint resolution, 2020-04. Any other questions for Jeff or Ryan or further discussion?
I think it's well overdue.
Yeah, I think it's a good, I would agree, Bill, it's a good deal for Lebanon Utilities and the city, and shows our continued cooperation with the city. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Jeff. And then the next item we have involves the Noble Street property demolition, and Ryan Ottinger will address the board on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. On the Noble Street property, there is an abandoned home and garage that the Parks Department, in discussion with them at the Park Board meeting, when we talked about the land swap, asked that we would consider tearing the structures down, demolishing the structures, and removing the debris. And with the land swap or not, we would need to, liability-wise and future use-wise, we would need to tear that down anyway. So, but even with the land swap, I think that's the right thing to do. So my request would be for the help for Butler, Freeman, and Seifert to start the contract and the bid process. We're going to send this out to bid, to be virtual bids, and make sure that we can get the most favorable deal for Lebanon Utilities as far as the demolition and removal goes. So this request is to start that process with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert for a total of $3,800, and that will ensure that all the contracts are handled correctly and the bid process goes through the legal options correctly, and everything is done in accordance with state code and legally. So that's what this request is for. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of this.
Is there any reason why we can't do this in-house?
With the pandemic, we can see, I know that when we were putting this together, the county was going through some transition as far as COVID goes. Part of the building is shut down to the public now, part of it is not, so I wouldn't be opposed to one way or the other. To be on the safe side is why we're erring on the side of caution with the virtual opening. But I would not rule out either one. If the board would want us to do it personally, we can do that. If they want us to do it virtually, we have that option too. I don't want to speak out of turn, but Mr. Jacob could expect, we are allowed to legally do that.
Pursuant to the governor's executive orders, I'm pretty comfortable with us doing a virtual bid opening.
Okay, that's fine. I guess really my question was, is there any reason we can't do the bids and everything in-house? I mean, and do it virtually that way? In other words, why do we have to go through Butler Fairman?
I think, my opinion would be that we're still going to have man-hours and time in it. So
Right.
by the time we take that out of the 3,800, to not have to worry about it and just add this cost to whatever the cost of the demolition would be. I mean, I appreciate your desire to save money, believe me. Is that what you're asking? Why can't we?
Are you good with that, Ed?
I think the bigger question is, Jeff, as legal counsel, do you feel that that is past our area of expertise? Because not having proper documentation could certainly exceed $3,800 in what we would spend with Butler Fairman, and that would have their errors and omissions behind us on those decisions. So that needs to be considered as
Well,
well.
it's not a real big project. We're just talking about tearing down a house, so.
Yeah, well, the 69 kV, getting an easement didn't seem like a real big project, and we ended up buying a house. So I'm very much in favor of using the engineers for this, just for the liabilities,
Okay, that's fine.
I think Bill's point is that we bid, right, and I don't want to speak for Bill, but your point is that we bid a lot of projects out and accept bids, and you're asking why this would not be another one like that, right?
That's right.
I can, just from my personal and my professional view, I've never, if it was a water project or a wastewater specific project that was going to be a small amount, money-wise, I would have no problem. I've never done any type of a demolition before. They, in speaking with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, they just did a very similar project in Plainfield. So I just wanted to, with it being discussed at the park board meeting, I wanted to make sure that we were doing everything that we agreed to as far as on the legal end and to maintain our relationship with the city, a good relationship with the city. So I just wanted to make sure everything was covered on the contract and the legal side and the bidding side is why I am suggesting using Butler, Fairman, and Seifert on this. And Mr. Sterner, I agree. If it were a smaller water project, I would have no problem taking care of that all in-house. But since I've really never done this before, I wanted to just to make sure that we were covered on all aspects.
Well, that's fine. It's just not that big of a project, but I understand your position.
And we've got John here, John Leitner from BFNS as well. I don't know, John, if you want to chime in and tell us exactly, or how we benefit.
I mean, I get that it's probably dollar-wise, it's not that big of a project, we're talking between probably $20,000 or $30,000 for the actual demolition is what I would assume for construction costs based on things, but as you're talking, making sure things are properly disconnected, making sure that asbestos reports are gathered before it's torn down. I mean, there's a lot of liability that comes into it's. Unfortunately, the day and age we live in, it's not. I want that house down. I just go take it down. I mean, it's a little bit more involved than just simply going and tearing a house down. And again, with the bidding process, it's. We'll ensure that the process is followed correctly and that all the bidding contract documents are in proper order.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, but I wanted to maybe do it in-house, because that's one of the questions that we asked and we were looking at before we decided to bid it out, as far as could we even just have staff do it, because prior demolitions other places, I've had the staff that had the time and a backhoe, and they just run the backhoe through the place a couple times and start shoveling things into the dumpster. What you get into there, though, is there's environmental, I think John mentioned asbestos, there's what's underneath the house that you didn't know about. You get into all sorts of liability issues that can be be a problem. So it's just cleaner to get it all done and have an engineer's liability and stuff on covering it and not ours.
Any other questions for Ryan? All right, if not, I'd entertain some motions on this item.
I move to approve Butler, Fairman, and Seifert in the amount of $3,800 to assist with contracting documents, bidding assistance, and virtual bid opening associated with the demolition of the building located at 501 East Noble Street, contingent upon passage of the resolution, which is, I believe, passed. Transfer of ownership.
Second.
Motion made by Dan and seconded by Jim to approve the BF&S contract to bid in the amount of $3,800 for the Noble Street property demolition. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate the info. And John? I think you're staying right there, it appears, for the William Street Bridge and Water Main Project. This is a bid authorization action item.
Yes, the William Street Bridge project is a county project at the intersection, basically the intersection of William Street and Ann Street near Central Elementary School. This was originally slated as a 2020 project, but the county did not receive favorable bids the first time through, so they decided to delay it. We have, our water line goes through the deck, the concrete deck of the bridge, and that will be completely replaced. So therefore, our water line will have to be either replaced in the concrete deck or moved completely. And we are going to move it completely, bore it underneath Prairie Creek and bring it back up to where in the future there will be no conflict. So if this has to be done again, while I'm here or while I'm not, in the future, it will not be in the county's way, and anything on that bridge that needs to be constructed or deconstructed or any of that process will not be a Lebanon utility issue. The county did receive a favorable bid for summer of 2021 as their anticipated start date. So I would like permission to go ahead and start our process with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert in the bidding, the engineering of moving this line and the boring underneath the creek. And we are projected, we're going to put in the bid process that is the week of the Lebanon Community Schools spring break to not interfere with bus traffic for elementary school, Central Elementary School, but also to stay ahead of the county and their bridge project so we don't delay them, cost them any money, or mess with the fall school start and the school bus, because I'm not sure how long, what their time frame is, but they're planning on starting basically the week after or the day after school is out for the summer session. This is a budgeted item that in the next year's budget, we will be moving from 2020 to 2021. We have $150,000 budget for this. We're projecting that it will be a little bit less than that, but we don't know, obviously, with the cost increase with going from 2020 to 2021, and how many bids we get and what kind of favorable pricing we will get. But we're comfortable with that number. But this will get the bid process started and proper advertising, proper documentation started for this project. And we also plan on doing this virtual if the board would prefer, with this being a larger project, prefer it to be in person. Whatever discretion the board wants to use, I'm okay with either one. We've done both and had success with both. But so we will obviously, take into consideration whatever the board wants to do in that area also.
I like virtual during the pandemic.
And
I think that protects our employees.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I agree, especially with, you guys have experience with it and it's worked well, so I think it makes sense for everybody involved.
So the bid documents are going to include doing the project during spring break, correct?
Well, yeah, it'd be the dates. We looked on the school calendar, and it's basically from that Sunday to Sunday, that window, We don't anticipate it taking that long, but that's what we were going to put in, just those dates, not say spring break, but the dates of the school calendar spring break, yes.
Yeah, if I could interject real quick, what we have in the contract documents right now is that work in Williams Street itself in the right-of-way has to be completed within those dates, from Sunday to Sunday on spring break.
Okay. I hope that doesn't limit the number of folks that'll bid on the project.
Well, I agree. I mean, I was obviously, but with the time frame that we have and with BFNS's experience, we think that will give enough time for the road work. There's still some there still could be, because where the boring is going to take place is off of the road. So equipment-wise and stuff, as long as they can open William Street back up, the rest of that project can take longer. It's just the road work.
And Aaron, to your point, it's a good question. Why we are bidding it a little bit early now, rather than waiting till the last second, is that will give contractors time to schedule out that work. So we're going to bid it next week. Put the advertisement out and bid it within 2 weeks, and then that should give people enough time to plan out their spring schedule and get us within that window. So, good question.
Right, anything else for Ryan? If not, I'd entertain some motions.
I move to approve Butler, Fairman, and Seifert to properly advertise the Williams Street Bridge project and conduct the virtual bid opening.
Second?
Motion made by Aaron and seconded by Bill to approve the BFNS advertised to bid the Williams Street Bridge project. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next item tonight is the Ulen bid authorization. This project's been mentioned several meetings here recently, and we've got our electric ops manager, Jeff Greeno, here to discuss the bid authorization. Hey, Jeff.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. The electric department would like to ask the board for approval to proceed with virtual opening bidding process for the Ulen construction project. The reasoning why I'm bringing this back to the board is earlier documents were not received on time, and this time we're going to do a virtual open bidding process due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So to summarize, I would like to ask the Lebanon Utility Service Board approval the request to proceed with the virtual bidding process for the Ulen construction project. If you have any questions.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, and as you mentioned, if you recall, this was actually approved prior, but without the documents in hand that we now have. So that's the reason we see it again here today.
Yeah, I believe that without those documents, we approved the project with front installation. So this will change it to a rear installation.
Correct. Yep, thanks for clarifying that, Dan. Any questions for Jeff on this authorization to bid? If not, I'll entertain motions.
I move to proceed with the virtual bidding process for the Ulen construction project, relocating the service to the rear of the properties.
I second that.
Motion made by Dan, seconded by Jim to proceed with virtual bidding process for the Ulen construction project for rear of the property installation. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Next item tonight's approval of the claims dated November 18th, 2020 in the amount of $1,896,633.21. Everybody had a chance to review the claims?
I'd make a motion we approve the claims dated November 18th, 2020, in the amount of $1,896,633.21.
Second.
Motion made by Jim, seconded by Aaron to approve the claims dated November 18th, 2020. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the next item is any other business that anyone may have for the board tonight. Also, opportunity for public comment. All right, as of right now, the plan is to have only one meeting in December, which would be December 9th at 5 p.m. Depending on the pandemic conditions, that meeting could possibly be conducted virtually, so we'll stand by for more clarification on that, but that's the plan at this point. Anybody have anything else before we adjourn? All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second?
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Dan to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, everyone. Stay safe.